Hey, welcome tonight to the hangar. Welcome to Acoustic Night. Let's worship the Lord together. It's the same God that we worship, even here in the mosh pit. I'm calling on the God of Jacob, whose love endures through generations. I know that you will keep your covenant. I'm calling on the God of Moses, the one who opened up the ocean. I need you now to do the same thing for me. Come on, we say tonight. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness, on your faithfulness. I'm calling on the God of Mary, whose favor rests upon the lowly. I know with you all things are possible. I'm calling on the God of David, who made a shepherd boy courageous. I may not face Goliath, but I've got my own giants. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness, on your faithfulness. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness, on your faithfulness. You're the same God, yesterday, today, and forevermore. You're the same God. You heard your children then, you hear your children now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You answered prayers back then, and you will answer now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You were providing then, you are providing now. You are the same God. You come on and move in power. You moved in the same God as you were back then. You'll be right now. Faithful, you freed the captives then. You're freeing hearts right now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You touched the lepers then. You're touching hearts right now. You are the same God. You are the same God. As you were back then, you will always be faithful. You're faithful, God. As you were today, as you are right now. I'm calling on the Holy Spirit. Almighty river, come fill me up again. Come and fill me up again. Sing that again. Come and fill me up again. Come on, we're not satisfied. Come and fill me up again. We want more. Come and fill me up again. 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 We want more of you, God. Fill me up again. Come and 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 fill me up again. If you're comfortable, let's just lift our hands to the Lord tonight and let's ask Him tonight to fill us with the Spirit of God, the Spirit that gives life, the Spirit that gives hope. Come and fill me up again. Come and fill me up again. Come and fill me up again. Sing one last time. Come and fill me up again. Well, welcome more than just Hanger Acoustic Night. Welcome to the power and the presence of our God. His name is Jesus. By the way, yes, I thank you for that woo. It's going to be an incredible night. I know you can hear yourself, maybe a little bit awkward. That's okay. And I know we're used to loud and a lot of lights, and it's maybe just as loud, but you can hear yourself, and that's okay. So we're going to kind of turn up the worship as we worship God tonight. It's the same God like we've been singing already. He's the same God, whether it's from there or right here or in this room. Yes, it's warm in here, isn't it? Yeah, see, that's what happens when you start worshiping. So, that being said, we're going to keep singing, if that's all right. And we're going to try this one. Let's see how it goes. Here we go. wanting a place to hide this weary soul, this bag of bones. And I tried with all my might, and I just can't win the fight. I'm slowly drifting, a vagabond. Come on. And just when I ran out of road, I met a man I didn't know, and he told me that I was not alone. He picked me up and turned me around. He placed my feet on solid ground. I thank the Master, I thank the Savior, because he healed my heart, changed my name, forever free. I'm not the same. I thank the Master, I thank the Savior. Cannot deny what I see. Got no choice but to believe. My doubts are burning like ashes in the wind. So long to my old friends, burden and bitterness. You can't just keep it moving. You're not welcome here. From now till I walk the streets of gold, I sing of how you saved my soul. This wayward soul has found its way back. Oh, oh, oh. He picked me up and turned me around. He placed my feet on solid ground. I thank the Master, I thank the Savior, because he healed my heart, he changed my name, forever free. I'm not the same. I thank the Master, I thank the Savior, I thank. Another one, I am free, I am free, I am free. Hell lost another one, I am free, I am free. Come on, you sing it. Hell lost another one. Solid ground. I thank the Master, I thank the Savior, because he healed my heart, he changed my name, forever free. I'm not the same. I thank the Master, call your Savior. We're having some fun tonight.
You are here, you're moving in our midst. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, you're working in this place. I worship you, I worship you. darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are here, you're touching every heart. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, you're healing every heart.
In Jesus' name.
I worship you, I worship you. You are here, you're turning lives around. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, you're mending every heart. I worship you, I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are.
Sing it again.
You are waymaker,
Miracle worker,
promise keeper,
light in the darkness.
my God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper,
Light in the darkness.
my God, that is who you are. 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 Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop, 'cause you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. That's who you are. That's who you are. In my doubt, you never stop working. In my fear, you never stop working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Your promises, they never stop working. I'm confident they never stop working. They never stop working. They never stop. In my fear, God, you never stop working. In my doubt, God, you never stop working. You never stop working. You never stop working. I'm confident you never stop working. Your promises, they never stop working. You never stop working. You never stop, 'cause you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper,
Light in the darkness, my God,
that is who you are. You are
Waymaker, miracle worker,
your promise keeper.
light in the darkness, my God,
That is who you are.
that is who you are,
That is who you are.
that is who you are,
That is who you are.
that is who you are, that is who you are, that is who you are. Christ is my firm foundation, the rock on which I stand, when everything around me is shaken. I've never been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus. He's never let me down. He's faithful through generations. So why would he fail now? He won't. He won't. I still got joy in chaos. I've got peace that makes no sense. So I won't be going under. I'm not held by my own strength, 'cause I built my life on Jesus. He's never let me down. He's faithful in every season. So why would he fail now? He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. He won't. No. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. Christ is my firm foundation. Come on, sing tonight. The rock on which I stand when everything around me is shaking. I've never been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus. He's never let me down. He's faithful through generations. So why would he fail now? He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. This is our testimony tonight. Every single person in this room. With every breath that we have, come on, let's fill it. Rain came, wind blew, my house was built on you. And I'm safe with you, I'm gonna make it through. Rain came, wind blew, but my house was built on you. And I'm safe with you, I'm gonna make it through. Come on. Yes, I'm gonna make it through. 'Cause I'm standing strong on you. Yes, I'm gonna make it through. 'Cause my house was built on Christ. Christ is my firm foundation. The rock on which I stand when everything around me is shaking. I've never been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus. He's never let me down. He's faithful through generations. So why would he fail now? He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. Sing it again. He won't fail. He won't fail. No, he won't. Faithful you were then, faithful you'll be tonight. We believe it to be true. You are our firm foundation in the midst of everything, God. Continue to pour out your Spirit in this place. Come and do what only you can do. We're better with you, God. We're better with you. Don't let us leave this room without being changed by your presence. Sing one last time. He won't fail. He won't fail. No, he won't. Amen. You guys can have a seat.
You guys show your appreciation to Chris and the band for me. We had some guests in the band tonight. Did you guys enjoy that? Yeah. I wanted to, I'm going to introduce our speaker for tonight and give you a little bit of an idea of where we're going. But first I wanted to say that, how many of you were here for the panel last week? Okay, so if you were here for the panel this week, I wanted to say a couple of things in response to it. One, we asked people to come up, and we didn't say this, and we probably should have because we say it at the Sex February panel, that you might not like everything that you hear when we bring a panel up. Like there might be things that you don't agree with. And if I'm being honest with you, there were things that were said last week on the panel that I didn't agree with. And so if you walked away from it last week, and the reason I'm saying this is because I heard from more than one of you. If you walked away from the panel last week feeling frustrated or confused or disagreeing, then I just wanted to say to you that that's okay, that you get to do that in church. And in case we haven't said that recently, let me say it again. You don't have to agree with every single thing that is said from a platform in church. I don't care what platform it is. I don't care what church you're in. You don't have to agree with every single thing that's said from a platform in church. In fact, a thinking person, and God gave every single one of you brains, and God expects you to use them, thinking people don't always agree with what comes out of a speaker's mouth. And so there were things that were said last weekend that I didn't necessarily agree with. That might have been the same for you, and that's okay. And if that's something you want to talk about, if there was something that was said in particular that really bothered you, and you would really like to process that with somebody, your small group leader is someone to start with. Kyle or I are people to start with. Our support team is here tonight. Jeff and Lonray are back in the back. You could talk to them if you want. But you don't need to feel like you just need to sit and like feel weird that you didn't agree with it. Does that make sense? You guys all with me? Okay, great. Tonight, we have somebody named Cortney with us, Courtney Achord, and Courtney has the master's degree and the credentials and all the things that the people last week had, but here's what's different for me, at least, about Courtney, is that sometime in the last year, I don't even remember exactly what it was, Courtney was here to do, was for our staff meeting here at the church, and I sat in this room, back there, right around where Crystal is sitting, and Courtney walked us through an exercise where she just had us think about all the things that had happened to us in the last couple of years, kind of like from like February, March of 2020, like forward, and had us like do this timeline thing with it and do some reflecting on it, and that was like a seminal moment for me. Like there were some things that she brought up in that staff meeting that were so healing for me and so just significant for me to realize as I looked over like the last couple of years. So here's what I know about Courtney. I know she's real good. And she's real smart, and she has some things to say that I'm excited for you to hear. I've asked her tonight to come and talk about how to be a friend to somebody who's having a mental health crisis. Because maybe it's not you, maybe the last couple of weeks you're like, I mean, this is great, and I'm glad we're talking about it, but this isn't necessarily my life right now. But you probably all have a friend who is in this place. And so I asked her to come and just talk about that, talk about how to be a good friend to those people, and some stuff like that. So will you guys give a warm hanger welcome to Courtney Achord.
Hello. Well, first off, I just want to say, I think I'm going to start coming and doing praise and worship in the hangar because that was really, really phenomenal. I felt like I was part of a music video, and I'm definitely not hip enough to be part of a music video. So that, for me, was a moment back there of feeling like I had something happening significant in my life tonight. So yes, as Jess mentioned, she talked about some things that maybe have kind of come up around how to help a friend that's kind of going through some things, or just kind of how to navigate tough relationship dynamics. And I was really delighted when she reached out and asked me to speak on this. I'm really passionate about this topic because I honestly think that this is an area where, like, when you know better, you just do better. And oftentimes, this is the kind of stuff that we're doing in our everyday life, and we never stop and really think about it. It's just sort of like how we respond to people sometimes. And so I am just delighted to be here with you tonight to talk through this. Really what we're going to get at the heart at here is what is referred to as boundaries. Now, most everyone can think of sort of like a boundary in real life, right? Like we see them every day, most literally in the physical sense. with crosswalks or stop signs or traffic lights, that sort of stuff, right? Because what do those things do? Anybody know? They stop you. Why? What would happen if you didn't have stop signs or stoplights? Exactly. You'd get hit by a car. So they keep you safe. I think that's what you're trying to say, right? They keep you safe. Okay, so boundaries keep us safe. And that's the whole concept of really what we're going to talk about tonight, is how to keep yourself kind of emotionally safe, and then how to actually take that and navigate that when you're kind of doing life and you're in friendships with people, okay? All right, you can go to the next slide. I don't know who's driving here. Okay, so as we think about boundaries, it's really about kind of the personal limits that we set within ourselves and then that we set externally with other people. Now, I don't know about you guys, but as soon as somebody says to me that there's a rule I have to follow, I'm like, I'm out. Nope, sorry, not gonna do it. In fact, there's like songs that have been written about this. I don't know, you guys may not be familiar with Highway to the Danger Zone. Anybody? Okay, all right, good, awesome. All right, maybe because Top Gun just was back out, right? But I mean, it's kind of literally about that, right? Like, we like to go into the danger zone because I'm not sure why, but when I get to heaven, that's gonna be one of my first questions. Like, why was it this way? But we have been given a lot of free will, right? And so we often are like, no, I don't want to say no to things. It doesn't feel good, okay? So I like to think about this in another context. I like to think about boundaries in the context of having some guardrails. Now, how many of you have gone bowling? Show of hands. Awesome, you're gonna totally get this. Okay, so when you go bowling, now I can tell that you guys are a really talented bunch. So you probably don't use the bumpers anymore, right? Okay, if you do, you certainly wouldn't tell anybody. But at some point, right, you used the bumpers on the lanes of the bowling alley. And the purpose of using the bumpers in the bowling alley is to get the ball to do what? Not go in the gutter, because you want it to go and knock down all the pins, right? So when you think about that in the context of how you set boundaries, I want you to think of boundaries as bumpers. Like, think of yourself personally as like you're kind of like a bowling alley, right? You're like the lane. And those bumpers are kind of what keeps you kind of going down the middle. So the goal is for you to hit all the pins, right? So you could use that metaphor to say in your life, whatever your goals are. But really the idea is that it keeps you from kind of going in the gutter. Another way to think of this is if you were going on like a winding mountain. Have you guys ever been on like trips with your parents, right? And you see those guardrails that go around the side of a mountain? Those guardrails are there because they keep you from going off the side of the mountain. If your parents got distracted or something and they bumped into that guardrail, that would damage the car, but it wouldn't cause you to go off the cliff. Does that make sense? So personal boundaries work the same way. They're guardrails for us. So this is important because what starts to happen when we set boundaries is that it doesn't feel so good sometimes, and then there's tension that starts to form. And so that's important. What I would say to that is you always want to pay attention to the tension. Pay attention to the tension. When you start to feel like, I don't know about this, I'm not sure it's a good idea, right? That's like wisdom. That's also the Holy Spirit trying to clue you in that like, we're kind of going down a path here. We're bumping up against a guardrail. And that is the Lord trying to keep you safe, right? That's the Lord going, hey, this may be something that's not what's best for you. And so then you got to do some self-reflecting, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So the other thing I really want to make sure that you take away from this evening is that boundaries are not selfish. If there's like one thing that you could leave with this evening, I would say it is that. They are not selfish. I think it's really common, especially as Christians, and I recognize maybe not everybody in the room is a Christian, and that is totally fine, but I think if you are a Christian, this is especially kind of heightened for you, this topic, because you feel like, well, wait a second, this is confusing. Like Jesus said we're supposed to love everyone, love our neighbor, and like, isn't it loving to just like be there for my friend all the time, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But the reality is saying no to someone isn't selfish. That's just good self-care sometimes. And so it enables us, when we say no sometimes, to actually be able to serve others from a really selfless place, because it keeps you from being burnt out or resentful or angry that you're trying to like help or do something for a friend again that maybe just isn't ready to accept your help, right? Because they would ultimately have to be the ones to make the choice that they want to do some things different, okay? All right, so then we look at, on the next slide, that boundaries are both internal and they're external. So internal boundaries are sort of those things that you set as those guardrails again for yourself. So they're like kind of your personal identity, like what you value, what you hold to be true or kind of most important in your life. Those are your internal boundaries. Your external boundaries are the things that you set and establish as kind of what you will and won't do. It's sort of like the externalization of what you believe, and that's like an articulation of kind of your internal boundaries. So a lot of times what happens too is that we start to set those internal boundaries, or we don't even know that there's a boundary challenge that we might have until we're in like a friendship with somebody, and then they bump up against those boundaries, and suddenly we think, well, that person's the problem, right? Like we're never the problem, it's always our friend. And so that is also a signal that somebody is kind of bumping up. Again, it's that tension that starts to form, that like, I'm not sure how I feel about this. Like something about this just doesn't feel great, but I can't quite pinpoint what it is. That's a clue that you need to start cluing into yourself a little bit, because there's either something happening internally that you're violating that goes against what you know to be true that's best for you, or externally that might be happening too. Often it's easier to see that externally, right? It's easier to see it in our friendships. Like somebody said something and it really hurt me and I don't like that. Okay, then you know there's been sort of a boundary violation there. And so some of the examples of this are kind of what you see up on the screen. So I would say kind of these are good examples of internal boundaries, knowing and honoring our capacity. So recognizing that you're limited in what you're able to do. A good example of this would be like, there's often like being able to hold kind of both things, that I have homework to do, but I want to go out with my friends, right? You're limited in what you're able to do as a human being. And so there's some boundaries that you personally have to set for yourself around, how am I going to get this stuff done, or I'm going to have to make a choice. That's an example of an internal boundary. Taking responsibility for what's ours, so that's really like not putting it on somebody else when something happens, or taking just personal responsibility in general for things that you know that you're in control of. Your feelings are an example of that, right? You're always in control of how you feel and how you respond to something. And it's okay to have bad feelings about things, but feelings come and go, and we're responsible for that, and we're responsible for what we do when we feel a certain way. Cultivating self-awareness is just, again, sort of reflecting on, why do I think that, or why do I feel that way? And just having some ideas around kind of a reflective nature of how things are going, maybe in a friendship or at school or with parents, having some awareness that you might be having a role in something that's going on. Being curious and not defensive. So this is really leading with like, hey, I'm not going to just get mad. I'm going to be curious. I'm going to wonder why something might be bothering me, or how I actually played a role in something. And then honoring our limits. And again, this kind of ties back into that knowing your capacity also, but this is also where, this I'm sure shows up for all of you in the room in some form or fashion with peer pressure, really starting to say like, this is what I am okay with or I'm not okay with, and just standing firm in that. So being able to, again, identify for yourself personally, because that probably looks different than your friends sometimes, and that's okay. It's different for everybody. External boundaries, examples of that would be like communicating what you need. So often we don't communicate that with people. We just expect them to know sometimes what we need or how we need to be supported, and that can cause trouble sometimes in like a friendship because a friend can't read your mind, right? And so sometimes that's actually how things will start to evolve. Like you'll have some kind of a disagreement happen with a friend and you'll not understand what's gone on because maybe neither of you were saying what you needed. Setting boundaries on our time. Your time is so precious, so precious and so valuable. So an example of that would be what? Anybody? Who stays up late on their phones maybe texting? No one in the room? Yeah, I appreciate your honesty, man. So setting some boundaries on our time, being able to say like, hey, I really want to talk to you, but I've got a test tomorrow, and at 9, I got to be off my phone. That's an example of an external boundary that you could set with a friend, right? Choosing to be mindfully present. That would be like not being on your phones. You guys are all doing great at that right now. You're being very mindfully present. You're actively listening to me speaking. You're not checking out. So you want to do that with friends. That's a good way of showing an external boundary to somebody. Acknowledging when you've messed up. So again, that gets back to taking responsibility and also being curious. I will give you a pro tip. This is a real winner with parents. So the next time like mom or dad tell you to do something and you don't really like it or you don't really want to do it, if you could be like, oh, what I think I hear you saying, Mom, is that you actually really love me and that you don't want me to be on my phone late because you want me to do well. I mean, like, Mom's going to be like, well, I don't even understand what's happened to you right now. So being curious, though, sometimes around somebody's motivation for something, that's really important. Because what do we often do? Does anybody know? We don't listen, or we run away with our own story. Something happens with a friend, and we immediately go down the path of, like, this is what they meant by that. I can't believe this. We form a whole narrative and story in our head about what's going on with someone, and that may not be accurate at all. I mean, it could just be that your friend's having a bad day, or they got something going on at home that they don't really want to talk about. And so being able to check that out, or to say, hey, I think you're having a bad day, that can actually be really powerful, and that's just you being curious, okay? And then holding boundaries when challenged, and again, that gets back to the kind of honoring limits. So you're going to set those limits internally for yourself on what you're willing to do or not do, and then they're going to get challenged. You're going to be in a situation where somebody's going to be like, oh, man, but they're never going to know. Nobody's going to find out, right? Those moments are moments where you have to start to decide, maybe nobody will find out. That's a possibility, but you will know, and will you be okay with it? And so that, again, is where if you set some boundaries for yourself internally, it's easier to kind of anchor into those moments because you're not caught off guard by them. You're not surprised. You kind of already have a plan. Okay, on to the next slide. So what does the Bible have to say about boundaries? The Bible actually has a whole lot to say about boundaries, which I love. First of all, I would say Jesus was doing self-care before self-care was ever like a thing, because he had it down in terms of taking time away and really like protecting the sacred time that he needed to be able to pour into others. So all throughout the Bible, we see that Jesus would leave crowds. He would go away and he would pray. He would go away and rest. I'm not suggesting that you actually take that to your parents and be like, well, Jesus rested, I should take a nap. But if you want to, you could try it. He prayed, he rested, and he spent some time in solitude. And those are the things that actually enabled him to go out and serve others and pour into people and to stay on mission. He was not a people pleaser. He actually made people kind of unhappy sometimes because he would speak the truth in love. He was never mean, right? But he was a straight shooter. He was also like, yeah, man, you need to change what you're doing. Or he would give them a question to think about, right? That was him taking some responsibility, but also putting responsibility back on the person to do some things differently too. So that is actually a really great thing for you to start to clue into when you think about how you navigate friendships, okay? I think too, the other part of this that gets challenging, again, kind of like I mentioned at the beginning, is that we feel like, well, the Bible says we just really need to love everyone, and we need to love our neighbor. But oftentimes the part that we forget is the as ourselves part. And so if we're not taking really good care of ourselves, that's not going to enable us to actually love our neighbor very well. I think the other thing that really happens, and honestly, I would say this happens even for adults. This isn't just unique to you guys as teens, but I think what will happen a lot of times is that we know we're going to disappoint somebody when we say no. And it just doesn't feel good. It really, there's just no getting around the fact that it just doesn't feel good. And so sometimes we do or say yes to things or keep giving to somebody our time, our energy, our attention, because we just feel like, oh gosh, this is going to feel so bad if this person doesn't have someone or I'm the only person. And sometimes if you're in a situation like that, that may be true. But that's also, again, where you want to clue into that tension, that you're starting to recognize there's something about this friendship that isn't really working for me. And I don't really know how to help support this other person. And that's a clue that you probably want to seek some help from somebody that's got some wisdom, because that's a hard situation to navigate. That's a really hard situation to navigate as an adult. And you guys are still trying to figure out some of those internal boundaries that I mentioned. You're trying to figure those out as teenagers. You're starting to try to figure out, what am I about? What do I believe? What am I valuing? And so that's an ongoing process for you right now, and it's going to be changing a little bit. And so that can make it really tough when you're in a friendship to know, how do I help this other person and also kind of protect myself and what I know to be true and valuable for me. And to that point, I guess I would say that 2 Corinthians verse is really helpful to remember, that God wants us to give cheerfully, and it doesn't really matter what it is. He doesn't want us giving out of guilt or compulsion. He doesn't want you being like the friend there for somebody because you feel like you just have to be. Like, that's not what God's about. He wants us to give cheerfully. And so you do have to go back to like looking at what Jesus did a lot, because that, again, is really what enabled him to kind of go the distance, if you will, to be able to give to people over and over and over again of himself. Okay, last slide. So some practical tips for setting boundaries. I would say start small. So this is going to be like an ongoing process that you're going to be doing for probably like the better part of your life, because boundaries, our values are always evolving. Our boundaries, therefore, are always evolving, and they kind of ebb and flow and change through the years, and really just kind of through the seasons of life that you're in. Sometimes you may need more from a friend, and sometimes a friend may need more from you. So what you want to do is you want to start small. You don't want to go, oftentimes what will happen in conversations like this is that you'll start to think like, oh yeah, no, my friend is definitely violating my boundaries on some things. And so you don't want to go home tonight and be like, I can't be friends with you. I just heard this talk in the hangar, and I just really see that I can't be friends with you. Maybe that is the case. I think most often you want to, again, be curious, and you want to start to go, what is it about that friendship that just isn't really working for me? And what is it that I might need out of that friendship that I'm not getting? And how can I start to navigate that? So when that happens, that's when you want to seek some wise counsel. You can either seek wise counsel from another friend. You can seek it from an adult. It doesn't always have to be like a parent. You can seek wise counsel from anybody that you really think or know to be wise. But I say wise in particular because I think that's really important. Because again, our tendency is to want to go with what we feel. Like, we don't want to feel bad. So we'll keep saying yes to somebody a lot. because we don't want to feel bad and we don't want them to feel bad, right? So somebody that's got some wisdom can help you go, well, that's true, but like experience tells me if you keep doing this, this is probably how it's going to go, or this might be something for you to think about in terms of how it's going to go. Be clear about your end goal. I think that is really for you personally starting to figure out what is it that I want to be about long term. And again, you're always going to be kind of gut checking that, but really starting to go kind of what do I want people to say about me? I think a good way to do decision making sometimes around this is it's something that I heard one time called 10-10-10. You're going to 10-10-10 it. So you're going to think about, how is this decision, how is my saying yes or no to something in this moment? How does that impact me 10 minutes from now? How does that impact me 10 months from now? How might that impact me 10 years from now? Because the truth is, all of your choices are pretty interconnected, right? So even the decisions that you start to make now, they can have impacts on you 10 years from now. And that's hard to know or think about sometimes, because we all stay very like in the moment of what's happening right now. But sometimes if it's a decision that's tough to make about a friendship or about saying yes to something or no to something, I will go to asking myself, okay, Cortney, like in 10 minutes, this is not going to feel good. But in 10 months, I'm going to be really glad that I did this, because I know that it's going to enable me to have more time with my family, or it's going to enable me to do, if I don't spend money on this outfit right now, then that helps me to save and to go on a bigger trip that I want to go on with some of my friends. So in 10 months, it's going to feel really good. But the next 10 minutes, they're not going to be so great. Well, sometimes that's enough to help us go, okay, I can kind of live with that, when we can start to see that there's a bigger picture to it. You are only responsible for you. That is also just, if there's anything you can take away from this evening, I would say knowing that you are only ever responsible for you and the choices you make and the feelings that you feel, okay? I would say it is fair to say you are responsible to others. That's I need to treat people in a loving and caring way. I don't want to be a jerk, all of that kind of stuff, the golden rule. But then past that point, you are not responsible for how anybody else feels, acts, or behaves. You can only ever control that for yourself. And I think if that's something that you can take away from this evening, that's something that will like help you for your whole life, because it is really tempting sometimes to go, oh, but so-and-so says that they're really down, and so I'm not going to do my homework. I'm going to stay on the phone with them for 2 hours talking to them because they just feel really bad, and I don't know, they don't have anybody else. Okay, so if you're in that situation, what are some practical things that you could start to do? Does anybody know? Any thoughts? That's a tough one, right? Like if you have a friend going, like, yeah. A time limit? Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great idea. Start to set a time limit with your friend and say, hey, I can talk to you for 30 more minutes. And then after that, I've got to go, but I'm happy to check in later, or I can talk more tomorrow, right? That's great. That's an example of the external boundary we talked about, right? Getting really clear on how much time you can give someone. And that's also beautifully said, because there's no abandoning your friend there, right? You're still being a good friend, but you're just getting really clear on, here's what I can and can't do, right? You could also talk to a friend about other people that they have in their life that they could talk to. Like sometimes if somebody's just going through a hard time and they're feeling down or they're feeling depressed, you guys could actually start to help each other come up with maybe 3 things that you like to do that help you to feel better. What are a couple of places you like to go? Who are 2 or 3 people that you can call each of you if you're feeling down. You could work that plan together, and then that person doesn't feel like you are the only one anymore. That gives them some other thoughts on ways that they could get some help. And that is really helpful too, because sometimes we all need that push a little bit to know, I can do this on my own. I need somebody that's by my side that's kind of going to cheer me on, but they're not going to do it for me. And then my last one that I have up here is it's okay to dislike setting boundaries. I would be the first to tell you that I don't like setting boundaries. I think it's really hard to say no to things. I have learned when I have to say no to something, I usually say it's a no for right now, because I know that it's not always a forever situation. Most of the time, it's not always going to be this way, is what I will tell myself a lot.